The rain hammered against the windows of the downtown coffee shop as Marcus Thompson sat hunched over his laptop, trying to focus on his work despite the storm brewing both outside and within his heart. At 28, Marcus was a successful graphic designer who had built his career on creating beautiful, uplifting imagery for others. Yet on this gray Tuesday morning in November, he couldn't remember the last time he had genuinely smiled himself. 3 blocks away, 17-year-old Luna Rodriguez was walking through that same storm, but the weather was the least of her concerns. Her backpack felt heavier than usual, weighed down not just by textbooks, but by the crushing burden of hopelessness that had been growing in her chest for months. She had made a decision that morning, one that she believed would end her pain forever. Neither Marcus nor Luna could have imagined that their paths would cross in the next 30 minutes, or that a simple smile would change the course of both their lives in ways they never thought possible. Luna had been struggling with depression for over a year. The divorce of her parents, the constant moving between homes, the pressure to excel in school while working part-time to help with family expenses, and the feeling that no one truly understood her pain had created a perfect storm of despair. She felt invisible at school, misunderstood at home, and completely alone in the world. That morning, she had written letters to her parents and her younger brother, explaining her decision and asking them not to blame themselves. She had tucked the letters under her pillow, grabbed her backpack, and left for school as if it were any other day. But instead of heading to her first period class, she found herself walking through the rain toward the old railway bridge on the outskirts of town. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was walking through a storm toward what she saw as her final destination. The rain seemed to match her tears, and the gray sky reflected the emptiness she felt inside. She had convinced herself that the world would be better without her, that her family would eventually move on and be happier without the burden of her problems. As she walked, Luna thought about all the times she had reached out for help, only to be met with well-meaning but ultimately hollow responses. "Things will get better," people would say. "You're so young. You have your whole life ahead of you." But none of those words had penetrated the thick wall of despair that surrounded her heart. Meanwhile, Marcus was facing his own crisis, though of a different nature. 6 months earlier, his long-term relationship had ended when his fiancée, Emma, had decided that his struggles with anxiety and his tendency to withdraw when stressed made him too difficult to be with. The breakup had shattered his confidence and left him questioning everything about himself. His work, which had once brought him joy and fulfillment, now felt mechanical and meaningless. He went through the motions of creating designs for clients, but the passion that had once driven him seemed to have evaporated. He had been seeing a therapist, Dr. Sarah Chun, who had been helping him work through his depression and anxiety, but progress felt painfully slow. That morning, Marcus had received an email from a potential client who had decided to go with another designer, citing that his recent work lacked energy and inspiration. The rejection stung more than it should have, adding another layer to his growing sense of inadequacy and purposelessness. As he sat in the coffee shop, ostensibly working on a logo design for a local nonprofit, Marcus found himself staring out the window at the rain, wondering if he would ever feel genuinely happy again. He had been so lost in his own thoughts that he barely noticed when his coffee had gone cold or when the morning rush had died down, leaving the shop nearly empty. Luna's walk had taken longer than expected. The rain had intensified, and she had taken shelter under several awnings along the way, each time questioning whether she really wanted to go through with her plan. Deep down, a small part of her hoped that someone would notice her distress, that someone would reach out and give her a reason to reconsider. But as she continued her journey, that hope seemed to fade with each step. The streets were mostly empty due to the storm, and the few people she encountered were hurrying past with their heads down, focused on getting out of the rain as quickly as possible. As she passed the coffee shop where Marcus was sitting, Luna's backpack strap broke, causing her books and papers to spill out onto the wet sidewalk. The wind immediately began scattering her homework and notes, and she dropped to her knees in the rain, frantically trying to gather everything up while tears of frustration mixed with the rainwater on her face. Marcus, who had been looking out the window at that exact moment, saw the young girl struggling on the sidewalk. Something about the scene struck him as more than just an unfortunate accident. There was something in her body language, in the way she seemed to give up hope as her papers blew away, that reminded him of his own darkest moments. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed his jacket and rushed outside into the storm. "Hey, let me help you with that," Marcus called out as he jogged over to Luna, immediately beginning to chase down the scattered papers that were blowing across the sidewalk. Luna looked up, surprised. Through her rain-soaked hair, she saw a tall man with kind eyes, who was getting completely drenched while gathering her homework. For a moment, she was too shocked to respond. "Thank you," she managed to whisper as Marcus handed her a stack of papers he had rescued from a nearby puddle. "No problem at all," Marcus replied, and then something magical happened. Despite being soaked to the skin, despite his own struggles, despite the gloomy weather, Marcus smiled. It wasn't a forced smile or a polite social gesture. It was a genuine, warm smile that seemed to light up his entire face and, for a moment, chase away the darkness of the storm. That smile hit Luna like a bolt of lightning. In that instant, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. She felt seen. Not just noticed, but truly seen by another human being. The smile told her that she mattered, that someone cared enough to get soaked in the rain just to help her pick up her scattered belongings. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, noticing that Luna seemed to be crying, though it was hard to tell with all the rain. Luna nodded, not trusting her voice to remain steady. She was overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger who had appeared just when she needed it most. "Listen," Marcus continued, his smile never wavering. "I was just sitting in that coffee shop over there, and it's warm and dry. Would you like to come in and wait out the storm? Maybe dry off a bit?" For Luna, this invitation represented a crossroads. She could politely decline and continue on her original path, or she could accept this unexpected gesture of kindness from a stranger. Something about Marcus's smile made the decision for her. "Okay," she said quietly. They hurried into the coffee shop, both dripping wet, but somehow feeling lighter than they had in months. Marcus bought Luna a hot chocolate and got himself a fresh coffee, and they settled into a cozy corner booth near the window. "I'm Marcus, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "Luna," she replied, accepting the handshake and being struck again by the genuine warmth in his expression. As they sat there, warming up and watching the storm rage outside, something unexpected began to happen. They started talking. At first, it was just small talk about the weather and school, but gradually, the conversation deepened. Marcus found himself genuinely interested in Luna's thoughts about art and literature. She was clearly intelligent and creative, with insights that impressed him. For the first time in months, he felt engaged and present in a conversation. Luna, meanwhile, was amazed to find herself talking openly with this stranger. There was something about Marcus's manner, the way he listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and responded without judgment, that made her feel safe to share her thoughts and feelings. As their conversation continued, Luna found herself opening up about her struggles. She didn't share her darkest thoughts or her plan for that day, but she talked about feeling overwhelmed, about the pressure she was under, and about her sense of isolation. Marcus listened with the kind of attention that Luna had been craving for months. He didn't interrupt with advice or try to minimize her feelings. He simply listened and, occasionally, shared his own experiences with feeling overwhelmed and alone. "You know," Marcus said after Luna had described her feelings of invisibility, "I've been feeling pretty invisible myself lately. Like I'm going through the motions of life, but not really living it, if that makes sense." Luna nodded emphatically. "It makes perfect sense. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching my life happen from the outside, like I'm not really a part of it." This mutual understanding created a bond between them that neither had expected. They were both surprised to find that sharing their struggles with a stranger felt safer and more healing than keeping them bottled up inside. As they talked, Marcus learned that Luna was not only academically gifted but also artistically talented. She showed him some sketches in her notebook that had survived the rain, and he was genuinely impressed by her skill and creativity. "These are really exceptional," Marcus said, studying a detailed drawing of a bird in flight. "Have you thought about pursuing art more seriously?" Luna shrugged. I love it, but it feels like a luxury I can't afford. My family needs me to focus on practical things, on getting into a good college, and finding a stable career. Marcus understood this dilemma all too well. He shared his own journey as an artist, including the challenges and uncertainties, but also the deep satisfaction that came from creating something meaningful. Art isn't a luxury, he said passionately. It's one of the ways we make sense of the world, one of the ways we connect with other people and express what we can't say in words. Your talent is a gift, to yourself and to the world. Luna felt tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of recognition and hope. No one had ever talked to her about her art the way Marcus was talking about it now. As the storm began to subside outside, Luna realized that something fundamental had shifted inside her. The crushing weight of hopelessness that had driven her from her house that morning had been replaced by something she hadn't felt in months. Curiosity about what might happen next. Marcus's smile, which had initially drawn her into the coffee shop, had been just the beginning. His genuine interest in her thoughts and dreams, his validation of her struggles without trying to minimize them, and his encouragement of her artistic abilities had reminded her that she had value as a human being. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something. This morning I was in a really dark place. Darker than I've ever been. I had made some decisions that I'm now realizing were wrong." Marcus could hear the weight in her words, and his heart went out to her. "Do you want to talk about it?" Luna took a deep breath. "I was planning to hurt myself today. Permanently. But then my backpack broke, and you came outside to help me, and you smiled at me like I mattered. Like I was worth getting soaked in the rain for." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his damp clothes. He reached across the table and gently took Luna's hand. "Luna, you do matter. More than you know. I'm so glad you're here right now, talking with me instead of whatever you were planning." Luna's confession had a profound effect on both of them. For Luna, sharing her darkest moment with someone who responded with compassion rather than panic or judgment was incredibly healing. For Marcus, realizing that his simple act of kindness had potentially saved a life gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. "You know what's amazing?" Marcus said. "This morning, I was sitting here feeling like nothing I did mattered, like I wasn't making any real difference in the world. And here you are, telling me that a smile and some help picking up papers changed everything for you." Luna nodded. "It did. It really did. But it wasn't just the smile or the help. It was the way you treated me like I was important, like my thoughts and feelings and dreams mattered." This exchange was transformative for both of them. Marcus realized that meaning and purpose didn't have to come from grand gestures or professional achievements. Sometimes the most important thing you could do was simply show up for another human being in their moment of need. Luna, meanwhile, began to see that her struggles, while real and significant, didn't define her entire existence. There were people in the world who could see her value, who could appreciate her unique perspective and talents. As they continued to talk, Marcus had an idea. "Luna, I know we just met, but I feel like this conversation has been really important for both of us. Would you be interested in staying in touch? Maybe I could mentor you with your art, or we could just check in with each other when things get tough." Luna's eyes lit up with genuine joy for the first time in months. "I would love that. I don't have many people in my life who understand what it's like to feel the way I've been feeling." Marcus smiled, that same warm, genuine smile that had started everything. "Well, now you have at least one." They exchanged contact information, and Marcus wrote down the name and number of his therapist, Dr. Chun. "She's been really helpful to me," he said. "If you ever want to talk to someone professionally about what you've been going through, she's amazing." Luna accepted the information gratefully. For the first time in months, the idea of reaching out for help felt like strength rather than weakness. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Luna maintained regular contact. They met for coffee every Saturday, where Luna would show Marcus her latest artwork and Marcus would share his current projects. These meetings became something both of them looked forward to eagerly. Marcus found that mentoring Luna gave him a sense of purpose that reinvigorated his own creative work. Her fresh perspective and unbridled creativity inspired him to take more risks in his designs and to infuse his work with more genuine emotion and meaning. Luna, meanwhile, began to see possibilities for her future that she had never imagined. With Marcus's encouragement, she started submitting her artwork to local competitions and began researching art schools. More importantly, she started therapy with Dr. Chun, who helped her develop healthy coping strategies for dealing with her depression and anxiety. Luna's transformation didn't go unnoticed by her family. Her parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, had been worried about their daughter's withdrawal and sadness, but hadn't known how to help her. When Luna began showing signs of renewed interest in life, spending time on her art, talking about future plans, and even smiling occasionally, they were both relieved and curious about what had changed. When Luna told them about meeting Marcus and how his kindness had pulled her back from the brink of despair, her parents were moved to tears. They insisted on meeting the man who had made such a difference in their daughter's life. The meeting was emotional for everyone involved. Maria and Carlos thanked Marcus with tears in their eyes, telling him that he had given them back their daughter. Marcus, deeply moved by their gratitude, downplayed his role, insisting that Luna's own strength and resilience were what had made the real difference. But Luna's younger brother, 13-year-old Diego, perhaps put it best. "My sister was disappearing for a while there. It's like you helped her remember how to be herself again." As Marcus's own work began to improve, infused with new passion and purpose, his professional life started to turn around as well. The local nonprofit whose logo he had been struggling with that fateful morning loved his final design, which incorporated elements inspired by his conversations with Luna about hope and resilience. Word of Marcus's renewed creative energy spread through his professional network, and he began receiving more interesting and meaningful projects. But more importantly, he had rediscovered his love for his craft and his belief in the power of visual communication to make a positive impact. Marcus also began volunteering his design services for mental health organizations, creating materials that promoted awareness and encouraged people to seek help. He found deep satisfaction in using his talents to address issues that had affected both him and Luna so profoundly. With Marcus's mentorship and encouragement, Luna's artistic abilities flourished. She won her first art competition 6 months after their initial meeting, with a piece titled "Storm and Sunshine" that depicted a person walking through a dark storm toward a warm, welcoming light. The judges commented on the piece's emotional depth and the artist's ability to convey both struggle and hope in a single image. Luna knew that the inspiration for the piece had come directly from her experience with Marcus, and the way his smile had been like sunshine breaking through the darkest storm of her life. As her senior year of high school progressed, Luna began receiving acceptance letters from art schools, including several with scholarship offers. The same creativity that had once felt like an impractical luxury was now opening doors to her future. Marcus and Luna's story began to have a ripple effect in their community. Luna started a peer support group at her high school for students struggling with mental health issues, sharing her story of how one person's kindness had made all the difference in her darkest moment. Marcus began speaking at local schools and community organizations about the importance of small acts of kindness and the impact that genuine human connection can have on someone's life. His message was simple but powerful. You never know when your smile, your kindness, or your willingness to help might be exactly what someone needs to choose hope over despair. The coffee shop where they had first talked became something of a local landmark for them. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, learned their story and created a kindness corner in the shop where customers could leave encouraging notes for others to find and take messages of support when they needed them. Inspired by his experience with Luna, Marcus began researching the psychological and physiological effects of smiling and human kindness. He learned that genuine smiles, what scientists call Duchenne smiles, trigger the release of endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, creating a natural mood boost, not just for the person smiling, but also for those who witness the smile. He discovered that acts of kindness create what researchers call a helper's high, releasing oxytocin and other feel-good chemicals that benefit both the giver and receiver of kindness. This research fascinated Marcus and gave him a scientific framework for understanding why his simple act of helping Luna and smiling at her had been so transformative for both of them. Marcus began incorporating this research into his speaking engagements, helping audiences understand that kindness isn't just morally right. It's also scientifically proven to improve mental and physical health for everyone involved. A year after their first meeting, Marcus and Luna met at the same coffee shop to celebrate the anniversary of what they both considered to be a pivotal moment in their lives. Luna had just received her acceptance letter to the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design, while Marcus had been chosen to create a major public art installation about mental health awareness for the city. Do you ever think about what would have happened if your backpack hadn't broken that day? Marcus asked as they sat in their familiar corner booth. Luna smiled, a bright, genuine expression that bore no resemblance to the desperate, rain-soaked girl from a year earlier. "I try not to think about it too much," she said. "But I will say this. I believe the universe has a way of putting the right people in the right place at the right time. You were exactly what I needed when I needed it most." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And you were exactly what I needed too. Helping you, getting to know you, watching you grow and thrive. It reminded me why I became an artist in the first place. It gave me back my sense of purpose." As Luna prepared to leave for art school and Marcus embarked on his new public art project, they both reflected on how much their lives had changed since that stormy November morning. They had gone from being strangers drowning in their own separate struggles to becoming chosen family members who had helped save each other. Luna's depression hadn't disappeared overnight, and she still had difficult days. But she now had tools to cope with those challenges, a support system that included Marcus, her family, Dr. Chun, and new friends who valued her for who she was. Most importantly, she had hope for the future and dreams that felt achievable. Marcus had similarly continued to work on his anxiety and depression, but his sense of purpose and connection had been restored. His relationship with Emma had never rekindled, but he had learned that his worth wasn't dependent on any single relationship or professional achievement. His identity was rooted in his capacity for compassion and his ability to use his talents to make a positive difference in the world. 5 years later, both Marcus and Luna had achieved remarkable success in their respective fields. Luna had graduated with honors from art school and was having her first solo exhibition at a gallery in New York. Marcus had become nationally recognized for his work combining art with mental health advocacy, and his public installations could be found in cities across the country. But perhaps more importantly, they had both become advocates for the power of human kindness. Luna frequently spoke to high school students about her experience with depression and the importance of reaching out for help. She always emphasized how one person's kindness, Marcus's smile and willingness to help, had been the turning point that saved her life. Marcus continued his speaking engagements, but had also started a nonprofit organization called the Smile Project, which trained people in recognizing signs of mental health struggles and responding with appropriate kindness and support. The organization's motto was simple: "A smile can save a life." Research continued to validate what Marcus and Luna had experienced firsthand. Studies showed that communities with higher levels of social connection and kindness had lower rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. The simple act of smiling had been proven to reduce stress hormones, lower blood pressure, and boost immune function. More importantly, researchers found that acts of kindness created a ripple effect, with recipients of kindness being more likely to perform kind acts for others. Marcus and Luna's story had become a case study in how individual acts of compassion could create lasting positive change in communities. 10 years after their first meeting, Marcus and Luna collaborated on a book about their experience, titled "How a Smile Saved 2 Lives." The book became a bestseller and sparked a national conversation about mental health, the importance of human connection, and the transformative power of small acts of kindness. They donated all proceeds from the book to mental health organizations and suicide prevention programs, feeling that their story belonged not to them, but to everyone who might benefit from understanding the power of compassion. During their book tour, they frequently returned to the coffee shop where they had first talked. Mrs. Patterson, now in her 70s, would always greet them with a warm smile and remind them that they were living proof that kindness could change the world, one person at a time. As Marcus and Luna reflected on their journey together, They both agreed that their story illustrated a fundamental truth about human existence. We are all interconnected, and our actions, no matter how small they might seem, have the power to profoundly impact others. Marcus's decision to smile and help a stranger in distress had saved Luna's life, but it had also saved his own in a different way. By reaching outside of his own struggles to help someone else, he had rediscovered his sense of purpose and his connection to the broader human community. Luna's willingness to accept help and to share her story had not only facilitated her own healing, but had also inspired countless others to seek help, show kindness, and believe in the possibility of hope even in the darkest moments. Their story became a testament to the idea that we all have the power to be heroes in someone else's story, and that sometimes the most heroic thing we can do is simply smile at another human being and let them know that they matter. In the end, Marcus and Luna's lives were both saved by a smile. Not just the one Marcus gave Luna on that rainy morning, but all the smiles that followed, creating an endless chain of kindness that continued to spread light in a world that sometimes feels overwhelmed by darkness. Their story reminds us that we never know when our simple act of kindness might be exactly what someone needs to choose hope over despair, life over death, and love over fear. And in those moments of connection, we discover that in saving others, we often save ourselves as well.